Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Proving the existence of Allah. Dr. Sezai Kurtaran.
Dr. Sezai Kurtaran is the son of head teacher Halit Kurtaran, who was himself the son of Say Ali Sezai Effendi, official head, Zaviyeder, of the Qudri Lodge in Kahramanmaraş. He graduated from Kahramanmaraş High School and Istanbul University Istanbul Faculty of Medicine. During his student years, he served for 3 years as the Director of Tourism and External Relations at the MTTB, National Turkish Students' Union. After graduating from the Faculty of Medicine, he worked 7 years as a freelance physician, 5 years as the Director of Health in the province of Kahramanmaraş, 2 years as the Deputy General Director at the Ministry of Health, 1.5 years at Gungarin Municipality, and 15 years as the Director of Health Services at Boslivler Municipality.
He retired due to age limits.
He is married and has 2 children, named Hasai Ahmet and Siyat Mehmet.
Proving the existence of Allah.
This book was written with the purpose of enabling people who say, "I believe in Allah," to transform that belief into a verified faith, tahkiki iman. It aims to provide strong evidence so they can convey to future generations, both present and yet to come, the fact that Allah exists, that the Qur'an is Allah's book, and that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is Allah's servant and messenger. Those who have a belief but lack sufficient knowledge to defend the correctness of that faith, sadly, have nothing to pass on to the next generation in terms of belief. Humanity splits into 2 groups regarding how the universe and all living and non-living beings, including humans, came into existence. One group believes that all of these beings have come into existence by coincidence, by themselves. Another group believes that they were created by an intelligent creator who has knowledge and the power to bring existence out of nothing.
Thus, there is actually no one who does not believe in something. If a person does not believe in a creator, then that person necessarily believes everything emerged by coincidence on its own.
The probability of coincidence.
First, let's examine whether coincidental existence is even possible.
Let's consider a mechanical wristwatch that runs smoothly, which contains on average about 500 parts. Suppose we disassemble all 500 parts of this watch and put them in a bag, then hang that bag from a branch of a tree. Even if that bag were to sway in the wind on that tree branch for millions of years, could those 500 parts reassemble themselves into a functioning watch on their own? Or would the parts wear down from friction and become even more unusable? All we did was take a functioning watch and turn it into disorder by dismantling it. Is there any chance that the disordered parts of this watch could come together on their own to become a functional watch again? The answer is clearly no, because order never arises from disorder on its own. This is a law of physics. Now, if 500 watch parts cannot assemble themselves by chance into a functional watch, how could a living human being composed of 50 billion cells, also having a mechanism to pass down its traits to the next generation, come into existence by itself?
Let's examine that as well.
For a human being to be born as a complete and healthy entity, it depends on the genes within the chromosomes found in living cells. A gene is a protein molecule embedded in the chromosome, which itself has the feature of duplicating. This molecule is a biological entity carrying all traits of the organism, transmitting all these traits to the organism without changing its own structure. Genes, whose number ranges from 25,000 to 35,000, reside in the DNA that constitutes chromosomes.
This DNA is made up of approximately 3.2 billion base pairs.
If you were to write down that many bases in a computer, you would need a 3 GB memory capacity. If you tried to count these bases, working 8 hours a day, it would take about 300 years. For a living human being to be born healthy, these 3 GB of bases must be arranged in a certain series and order, forming some 25 to 35,000 genes. Then those genes, again arranged in a particular sequence and order, must attach to the DNA, which in turn, in a specific series and order, form chromosomes. Clearly, an infinite number of factors make it possible for a human being to come into existence as a living, healthy being and continue to live. Similarly, an infinite number of factors maintain the current state of the universe and everything in it, both living and non-living, without disruption. The probability that all these infinitely many factors come together by chance is 1 in infinity, whose mathematical value is 0. That is, the chance that the universe and all that it contains, living and non-living, exist by coincidence is 0. Since the probability of coincidental existence is not within the realm of possibility, who is responsible for bringing about this existence? Let's now examine that. Foundational premises for investigation. For the conclusion we will reach in any investigation to be correct, the foundational premises we start with must be absolutely correct. Our foundational premises here are: the fact that there is a book called the Qur'an. The fact that a great person named Prophet Muhammad lived in this world. The fact of Prophet Muhammad's role in transmitting, tabligh, the Qur'an. The fact that our Qur'an has come down to us unchanged until today. No one can object to these 4 fundamental facts. No one can say, there is no such book as the Qur'an, or no man named Muhammad ever lived, or Muhammad had no involvement in the transmission of the Qur'an, or the Qur'an was later altered. None of these objections can be truthfully asserted. Therefore, let us begin our inquiry from these points. Could the Prophet Muhammad have authored a book like the Qur'an? Could any human being at all write a book like the Qur'an? 1. Could Prophet Muhammad have authored the Qur'an? To answer this, we need to know some of Prophet Muhammad's characteristics. First, Prophet Muhammad had no formal education, and we can indeed prove this. His entire life is well documented. Yet no one can claim, he studied at such and such place, so and so was his teacher, even though for all notable individuals in history, we typically know where they studied and who their teachers were. For example, we know that Aristotle, born in 384 BCE, 955 years before Muhammad, had Plato as his teacher. Further, Prophet Muhammad could not read or write. This too can be proven. Every detail of his life is carefully preserved, even to the extent of his beard hairs, which are kept in golden containers, yet among all these relics, there is no sample of his handwriting. For all great historical figures, their preserved artifacts begin with some sample of their handwriting. If Muhammad had known how to write, samples of his handwriting would certainly have been kept, just like everything else associated with him. During his lifetime, Prophet Muhammad would have the Quranic verses, which he stated came by revelation, written down by scribes and memorized by Hufas, memorizers, because he himself did not write. However, he never had his personal statements, answers he gave to people's questions, written down, nor did he allow them to be written during his lifetime. Had Prophet Muhammad authored the Quran from his own ideas, there would be no need for such precautions. He deliberately took measures to keep verses, ayat, separate from his own spoken words, hadith. Moreover, there is a clear difference in style between hadith and Quranic verses, which also indicates that they come from different sources. 2. Could any human being write a book like the Quran? To answer this question, we need to look at some of the features of the Quran. Certain verses in the Quran describe scientific truths discovered only in the 20th century through experimentation and observation. The knowledge in these verses includes details no one in Muhammad's day could have imagined, about creation of the universe, astronomy, certain features of Earth, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, and human reproduction. Let us review a few of these verses. Examples from Cosmology and Creation. Surah Al-Anbiya, 21:30. Do the disbelievers not see that the heavens and the earth were joined together as one piece, then we parted them? And we made every living thing from water. Will they not then believe? This verse explicitly and unequivocally states that, before taking on its present order, the universe was in a single fused core and then was parted. The notion that the universe came into existence via the splitting of a primeval nucleus was discovered only in the 20th century, the Big Bang theory. The verse also states that every living thing is from water, highlighting that there can be no life without water, something modern biology, in the 20th century, has also proven.
Surah Fussilat, 41:11.
After describing the creation of earth, then he, Allah, turned toward the sky, which was smoke, buhar, and said to it and to the earth.
This verse states that after that primeval nucleus was separated, the universe was initially in the form of smoke, or cosmic dust/vapor.
Only in the 20th century, using modern observational methods, was it understood and accepted that the universe was once a mass of gaseous material.
14 centuries ago, when people had no idea about these matters, could an illiterate man discover that the universe formed from a single nucleus and was once in a gaseous or smoky form? Any reasonable person can see that would have been impossible to deduce. Surah Nah, 71:15-16. Do you not see how Allah created 7 heavens one above another, and made the moon therein a light, Nur, and made the sun a lamp, Siraj? Surah Yunus, 10:5. It is He who made the sun a shining brightness, Dia, and the moon a light, Nur. These verses state explicitly that the sun's light is its own and the moon only reflects light, it is not a source of light. That is exactly what we know today about the sun and moon. Surah Al-Anbiya, 21:33. It is He, Allah, who created the night and the day, and the sun and the moon. Each floats along in its own orbit. Here, the Qur'an speaks of both the sun and the moon moving in their own orbits with a particular movement in space. Surah Adh-Dariyat, 51:47. And the heaven, sky, we built it with might, and indeed we are, its expander. The expansion of the universe is one of the great scientific discoveries of modern cosmology. How could Prophet Muhammad have discovered that the universe was expanding? No one in his time had such knowledge. So it seems improbable that knowledge of cosmic expansion, confirmed 14 centuries later, originated with the Prophet alone. Additionally, the Qur'an refers to a creation between the heavens and the earth. Many times it mentions Surah Taha, 20:6. To Him belongs whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on earth and whatever is between them, and whatever is under the soil. Surah Al-Furqan, 25:59. He who created the heavens and the earth and all that is in between them in 6 days. Surah Az-Sajda, 32:4. Allah is He who created the heavens and the earth and all that is between them in 6 days. Only in the 20th century did observations lead scientists to accept the existence of a cosmic substance beyond the galaxies. 14 centuries ago, what means could the Prophet have had to discover such intermediate substance? Examples from the plant world. Surah Taha, 20:53. Allah is the one who sends down water from the sky, and thereby we bring forth every kind of plant in pairs. The original Arabic uses the term azwaj, plural of zaj, which literally means pairs or mates, and can also be used for spouses, as in husband and wife. Surah Ar-Ra'd, 13:3. And He, Allah, brought forth therein all kinds of fruits in pairs. These verses talk about how plants also possess pairs and that fruits form only via these pairs. Modern botany has established that plant reproduction involves both male and female parts, that is, sexual reproduction in plants. Although this knowledge about plant reproduction became definite and widely recognized only with the development of modern botany, it is openly mentioned in the Qur'an. Example about milk production. Surah An-Nahl, 16 hours 66 minutes. And surely there is a lesson for you in cattle. From what is within their bodies, between excretions and blood, we give you pure milk to drink, easy to swallow for those who drink. This verse describes how milk is produced in the bodies of milk-giving animals. It indicates that milk is formed when nutrients from the intestines, excretions, are absorbed into the blood, and from the blood, milk is secreted by the milk glands. It emerges clean and pure,
untainted by the appearance of excrement or the repulsiveness of blood. Modern physiology discovered the detailed process of nutrient absorption and milk secretion only in the latter half of the 20th century.
Yet this phenomenon is clearly stated in the Qur'an 1,400 years ago. Human reproduction and embryological development.
Let us examine verses dealing with procreation and embryological, i.e., womb, development. 20th century.
Yet this phenomenon is clearly stated in the Qur'an 1,400 years ago. Surah Al-Qiyamah, 75:37. Was man not merely a drop of ejaculated semen? Surah An-Nahl, 16:4. Allah created man from a drop of fluid. Surah Al-Insan, 76:2. Verily we created man from a drop of mingled fluid. Surah Az-Sajda, 32:8.
Allah made his progeny from the extract of a humble fluid.
Surah Al-Mu'minun, 23:13.
Then we placed him, the human, as a drop of fluid, nutfa, in a firm lodging place, the womb.
Surah Al-Hajj, 22:5. We created you from a clinging substance, alaq. Surah Al-Alaq, 96:2. He created man from a clinging clot. Surah Al-Mu'minun, 23:14.
Then we made the drop into a clinging substance, alaq. Then we made the clinging substance into a chewed-like lump, mudghah. Then we made out of that lump bones, and we clothed the bones with flesh. From these verses, we see
human reproduction occurs through ejaculated semen. This semen is a mixture of different fluids. Inside that mixture is the essential fertilizing element or extract, the sperm. Once fertilization occurs, the fertilized egg is lodged in a secure place, the uterine wall.
This lodging happens by means of an implantation process involving an enzyme that erodes part of the endometrium, leading to a slight bleeding. The fertilized egg nestles within that clot, mainly fibrinogen, which turns to fibrin. Without fibrin, organ development cannot proceed. After a while, the embryo takes on the appearance of a chewed lump of flesh. Then the bones develop, followed by muscles and flesh around them. Embryology, the scientific study of how humans develop in the womb, is a relatively new branch of science. It was only in the mid-20th century that we began to shed light on these processes. Yet the Qur'an precisely describes these stages 1,400 years ago, which modern embryology has only recently confirmed.
The original source of reproductive fluid. Consider now the verse. Surah At-Tariq, 86:6-7. Let man consider, from what he was created. He was created from a fluid ejected, emerging from between the backbone and the ribs. According to this verse, the fluid responsible for human reproduction emerges from between the backbone and the ribs. In mature adults, the organs producing these fluids are the testicles in men and the ovaries in women. The male testicles are located in the scrotum, while women's ovaries are in the abdominal cavity. So, for an adult, these are not literally located between the backbone and the ribs. However, during embryological development in the womb, the testicles and ovaries initially form at a site that indeed corresponds to the region between the backbone and the ribs. Only later do they descend to their final positions, the testicles descend to the scrotum, etc. So, when the Qur'an says the reproductive fluid emerges from that region, it aligns with the embryological origin of these organs. Below are some schematic illustrations, labeled 1, 2, 3, 4 in the original text, showing this developmental migration. 1. 2. Production. 3. 4. If Prophet Muhammad had authored the Quran, he would have likely said that semen comes from the testicles in the scrotum, the observable fact in adult men. Instead, the Quranic text matches the 20th century discoveries of embryology. So, from whom could an illiterate man have learned these correctly detailed facts about the secrets of human anatomy, if not from Allah, the one who created humanity?
Even a single verse like this is enough to prove that Prophet Muhammad did not write the Qur'an himself.
The literary, eloquence, aspect of the Qur'an. Another inimitable feature of the Qur'an is its literary quality.
It is considered a masterpiece of Arabic literature. Its style, form, and grammar are believed, by Muslims, to be from Allah himself. When the Qur'an was first revealed, the Arabs of that time were highly advanced in literature. They excelled in both poetry and prose. Contests were held every year. Poems and prose pieces dedicated to the idols inside the Kaaba were awarded and hung on the Kaaba's walls, often written in gold letters. But once the Qur'an began to be revealed, its literary superiority was acknowledged even by many idol-worshipping Arabs, and they took down their writings from the Kaaba walls because they paled in comparison to the Qur'an. It is implausible that Prophet Muhammad, who had produced no other literary work of any kind, authored the Qur'an. Consider too the Quranic challenge. Surah Al-Baqarah, 223. If you are in doubt about what we have revealed to our servant, Muhammad, then produce a surah, chapter, like it and call upon your witnesses other than Allah, if you are truthful.
The Quran openly challenges skeptics. If they think Muhammad authored it, let them produce even a single chapter like the Quran. If Muhammad were the genius they claim, versed in all scientific fields and fully knowledgeable about human psychology, would he take the risk of issuing such a challenge?
A so-called genius would certainly anticipate that someone more genius might appear, or that a group of brilliant individuals might collaborate to produce a similar surah, thus negating his entire claim. And yet, no successful refutation or literary match has emerged. Those who still claim that a human could produce something like the Quran must face the following question: if you believe so, then accept the challenge, produce just one surah like it. Mere denial without proof holds no value. Since the revelation of the Quran, that challenge remains, and no one has produced anything accepted as comparable. Given all the above, we believe in Allah's existence, that the Quran is his book, and that Prophet Muhammad is his messenger.
Now consider the verse. Surah Al-Furqan, 25:2.
He who created all things and determined their measures, ordained all things, has set everything in a precise measure.
Another verse says,
He has created all things according to a measure. From such verses we understand that Allah is the creator of the entire universe and all within it.
The hidden qualities of the universe are also created by Allah.
All the laws and principles, what we call the laws of nature operating in the realms of the living and the non-living, are set by Allah. He is the one who established the laws of cause and effect that do not change.
Destiny, Qadar, is simply that all events in the universe follow these unchanging laws Allah has decreed.
Our discoveries in physics, chemistry, and other natural sciences are basically the unveiling of these stable rules set by Allah. Thus, there are unchanging physical laws in the realm of physics, and similarly there are unchanging metaphysical laws in areas beyond.
Humans live subject to both the physical and metaphysical laws.
The Book of Guidance Analogy. In a factory, engineers and technicians always prepare a user's manual for the machines they make. On a visible part of the machine, they put a warning label, saying in essence, consult the user's manual to operate properly. If we do not use the machine according to that manual, the machine may break down. For instance, if the manual says the machine runs on gasoline, yet we use diesel, or we decide that molasses also has energy so we pour molasses into the fuel tank, the machine would break. If the manual recommends a 10-grade oil but we use 40-grade oil, if it says use acetone for cleaning but we use acid, we'd cause damage. Obviously, the maker of the machine knows best how it should be operated, and if we want the best performance, we must follow that manual. Similarly, a human is in a sense a complex machine that hears, thinks, eats, and drinks, and interacts with others. The creator, maker, of this machine is Allah.
He alone knows all of our bodily and spiritual attributes. A person cannot fully know himself.
We can't completely comprehend our own physical and mental traits, nor fully understand our own character or that of others.
Because humans did not create themselves.
Someone who does not truly understand themselves cannot know how to be genuinely happy, nor can they discern their own rights or achieve absolute justice.
Not knowing one's true nature means one does not know the path to self-improvement and personal refinement.
Attempting to reach perfection, or moral maturity, purely on one's own reasoning is likely to end in mistakes because we lack full knowledge of the subtleties in our makeup. Hence, to prevent humanity from suffering such destructive outcomes, Allah sent us prophets and scriptures that teach the correct way of living and how to conform to our own innate nature, fitra.
The Qur'an teaches the principles that suit our nature, our psychological and physical design. If we violate these principles, the Qur'an indicates we may well face disaster.
The Qur'an's overall message warns us, beware of ignoring my commands and prohibitions, or you risk drawing calamities upon yourselves.
So from a Quranic perspective, living without Allah's guidance cannot lead to true happiness. Ignoring Allah's laws results in empty efforts, or illusions of success, that ultimately become suffering. Wealth and happiness. One might ask, so according to this, non-Muslims cannot be happy? Yet the richest nations in the world are not Muslim-majority countries. This question conflates wealth with happiness. We simply mentioned a metaphysical rule: adversity, calamity, results from breaking Allah's commands. Meanwhile, the metaphysical rule regarding wealth is that it comes from effort and hard work. Anyone who works, believer or not, may indeed become wealthy. Allah does not make wealth conditional on having faith or following His commands. A thief, a fraudster, or an exploiter can also be wealthy, but they cannot find true happiness by violating divine laws. Wealth does not always equate to happiness, everyone knows that. Are the non-Muslim wealthy nations truly happy? If they are, why do 60 to 80% of their youth become addicts of narcotics or other harmful substances? Why do they seek an escape in drugs? The conclusion is that mere wealth cannot buy happiness. Divine laws in society. In military organizations, there is a continuing directives memorandum that must be obeyed immediately. Those who violate it face punishment. It aims to maintain discipline and specify rules for drills and warfare. If discipline is lost, defeat is inevitable. Likewise, the Quran's commands function similarly for human society. They are divine directives ensuring justice and order. Violations lead to punishment from Allah. But each directive in the Quran also has a beneficial purpose for people. Breaking these commands inevitably harms people. As the adage goes, you cannot get to the right destination via the wrong path. Why are some educated people distant from religion? Often, in our society, many well-educated individuals remain rather indifferent to Islam's rules. Some even believe that being modern or civilized requires ignoring religious principles. This misperception often stems from a confusion between historical Christian Europe's approach to science and religion, and Islam's approach. For centuries in Christian Europe, religious authorities obstructed scientific progress, punishing scientists who contradicted church doctrines. Galileo's trial for stating Earth's rotation is a famous example. After the Renaissance, when it was established that Earth does rotate, European intellectuals rejected the church and developed a secular philosophy. Even today, in many Western scientific circles, referring to religion or a creator can be frowned upon. Muslim students sent to Europe to learn science, lacking strong grounding in Islamic culture, often adopted the West's secular or atheist attitudes. Hence, many of them, as future scientists in our faculties, unconsciously teach irreligious attitudes. As a result, the majority of the educated class can become skeptical about religion. But in Islamic history, scientists and religious scholars never had conflict. In fact, they often formed a unified intellectual tradition. The Qur'an itself indicated Earth moves many centuries before Galileo. Prophet Muhammad recommended seeking knowledge even as far away as China and declared learning to be obligatory for both men and women.
Islam highly honors knowledge. The ink of a scholar is holier than the blood of a martyr, and to spend time with scholars is deemed a form of worship. Prophet Muhammad said, "If you desire this world, seek knowledge. If you desire the hereafter, seek knowledge. If you desire both, seek knowledge." Many of our so-called intellectuals, ignorant of these facts, have developed an automatic opposition to religion, something that proved extremely costly to our society in the past century. Because of this secular stance, such intellectuals could never effectively guide the broader population. The people often reason, if these folks don't respect Allah, why would they respect my rights? Therefore, the more enlightened class fails to gain moral authority among ordinary people, and society remains intellectually stagnant. Meanwhile, Bernard Shaw, a famous Western thinker, once said, "A nation can only be uplifted if its intellectuals share the same faith as the people." Paradoxically, many among our so-called progressive class, who admire the West, ignore Shaw's statement because it conflicts with the materialistic or secular worldview they adopted. In short, everyone should realize that trying to distance society from Islam is misguided. Encouraging people to violate Allah's commands is one of the greatest harms one can do to humanity, and ultimately, to oneself, because no one can escape accountability before Allah. If people cannot imagine life after death, they might consider, we exist in this world now, why could we not exist in another realm tomorrow? The God who created us here can recreate us in another existence. Indeed, the Quran confirms this. Surah Al-Asr and its lessons. Surah Al-Asr, 103:1-3. By the declining day, Al-Asr. Indeed, mankind is in a state of loss, qasr. Except for those who believe and do righteous deeds and encourage one another to truth and encourage one another to patience. In this short surah, Allah Almighty begins with an oath on time, emphasizing the importance of time. Then he warns that all people are in a state of great loss unless they adhere to the four conditions in verse 3. Belief in Allah, iman. Doing righteous deeds, salih amals. Enjoining one another to the truth. Enjoining one another to patience, sabr. Let's analyze them briefly. Believing in Allah. If people do not believe in Allah, as explained earlier, they end up believing that everything exists by chance. Believing in something that is impossible leads the mind astray, an errant mind brings destruction. Thus, Allah does not will them to perish, rather, unbelief itself drives a person to ruin. Righteous deeds, salih amal. Most people in society assume that righteous deeds only mean prayer, fasting, hajj, and zakat. While those are indeed obligatory acts of worship, they are a small subset of righteous deeds. Salih amal means living in accordance with all the commandments in the Quran, which is the true requirement of faith. These commands align with human nature and aim to ensure health in its broad sense, physical, mental, and social well-being. Modern medicine defines health as the absence of disease or infirmity, plus complete physical, mental, and social well-being. Commands from Allah and teachings of the Prophet, that support physical health include personal cleanliness, washing hands before meals, taking ablution, wudu, before prayer, avoidance of alcohol, drugs, and gambling, eating moderately, finishing meals before feeling completely full, and doing exercise, e.g., swimming. These measures align with modern health principles. Spiritual health. The first pillar is faith in Allah. Without faith, a person loses direction and hope, leading to anxiety or depression. Psychiatrists note that genuine believers rarely suffer major psychiatric breakdowns because their faith anchors them in purpose. Social well-being. This requires a just distribution of wealth, proper housing, the absence of hunger or nudity, and secure healthcare. The Quranic rules for economic life are: prohibition of interest, riba, preventing exploitation by unearned income. Obligation of zakat, the rightful share of the poor in the wealth of the rich.
Prohibition of extravagance and luxury that incite envy. If followed, these principles reduce poverty gaps, encourage investment and production, since one cannot hoard wealth to earn interest, and promote social harmony.
These are examples of salih amal, righteous deeds.
Enjoining the truth.
Even if one personally believes and does good deeds, that knowledge and practice could fade over time if not shared. Falsehood arises from neglect of the truth, as the thinker Farabi said. People must remind and teach each other so that the real message does not get lost or replaced by superstition.
Enjoining patience.
The society often misunderstands patience as passively enduring hardship.
The surah, however, refers to steadfastness and perseverance in following Allah's commands, continuing to struggle on the path of truth until the last breath. This includes persisting in faith, righteous deeds, and truth-telling even under adversity. If these four conditions are met, people will not be in a state of loss. Mehmet Akif Ersoy beautifully paraphrased this surah in his verse. The Creator has endless names, the first is truth, haq. How great a thing for a servant to uphold the truth. It said that whenever the companions parted ways, they would recite Surah Al-Asr. Why so? Because in that short surah lies the secret of salvation. First, true faith, iman, then righteous deeds, salih amal. Then urging others to truth and urging them to patience. When these four unite, you shall never be in ruin again. Another verse in the Qur'an states. Surah Luqman, 31:27. If all the trees on earth were pens and all the seas were ink, with 7 more seas added, the words, knowledge, of Allah would still not be exhausted. Indeed, Allah is exalted in might and wise. This verse points to the infinity of Allah's knowledge. A person, no matter how educated, might learn 60 to 70,000 words or concepts in their life. Compared to Allah's infinite knowledge, that is practically nothing. True deliverance from human struggles cannot be found by purely following the theories of other humans who, like us, have severely limited knowledge. Real happiness emerges from living in accordance with Allah's guidance, for He alone, with infinite knowledge, knows how best to keep humans content. Conclusion and final words from the author. Those who do not want people to serve Allah often aim to make them slaves to others. Because a true servant of Allah cannot be a slave to anyone else. Therefore, certain states or groups try to distance people from Islam, using every means and tactic. With this booklet, I aim to show people that they should not be slaves to others but true servants, worshippers of Allah.